In January of 2023, the University of Pikeville charted a new course of transformation, reaching new heights in education, healthcare, and opportunity for a region. We started as a vision in conjunction with our Board of Trustees and President Webb, a conversation about the possibility that has now become a reality. We have made remarkable progress towards our $50 million capital campaign goal. There is still important ground to cover. Every gift brings us closer to transforming lives across Appalachia. Behind this incredible momentum lies quiet, steadfast work that we see and we see every day. This is the kind of work that happens as you wake up at 4 in the morning, driving down Mountain Parkway and meeting with alumni and donors, friends of the university, and folks that some of you have helped get us in touch with. There are 3 prongs to our capital campaign. The first one, the Tanner College of Dental Medicine. And this morning we have Will Tanner, who is here. And so, Will, would you please stand so we could recognize you? Thank you. The second prong to our capital campaign is Bear Mountain, the 500-acre athletic complex that will not only benefit the University of Pikeville students, but our community. And I see Coach Phipps is here today and several coaches. Could we have folks from the athletic department please stand and be recognized this morning as well? And then the last prong is scholarships. Our students are at the center and the core of what we do at the mission and the work here at the University of Pikeville. So as faculty and staff are here in this room and we have community guests and board members, we are here for students and student success, and that will remain the core of this campaign. The climb to reaching the top is not impossible. In fact, it is unstoppable. It is fueled by the spirit of this place, by the faculty and staff who believe in education, changing lives, by students who refuse to let geography define their destiny, alumni and friends who see UPike and it means so much to Eastern Kentucky and the future of rural health care in our region. Every gift matters. Every act of belief pushes us higher to reaching new heights. I have the privilege of introducing several special guests who are here this morning. Our board chair, Chairman Dotson, is here. Would you please stand, Chairman Dotson? And we have several board members. Our Board of Trustees has been meeting the last couple of days. Would our board members please stand to be recognized for your leadership as well? Several of my partners in crime, our cabinet is here. Would you all please stand? I see Dr. Meyer, Dr. Greer, Barry Bentley, Dr. Reeder, Dr. Keaton. Thank you to our community members as well who are here. We really appreciate your work and your commitment to the university. Mr. Dotson, you're up next, bringing us some words of welcome. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm going to tell you a few stories, and some of you may have heard them before, but that's the problem of being around a long time. Sometimes you get to listen to the same stuff. First, I'd like to share some personal story. I came here in 1968 on a scholarship to get a degree in music. Full tuition at that time was $300 a semester. When I was a senior, I was president of the student body, and I called on the company that I now own to give a $50 gift to the Student Government Association. And they said, "What are you going to do when you get out of school?" And I said, "I don't know. What do you have in mind?" And I went to work for a company selling trucks. Didn't have a hell of a lot to do with music, but UPike gave me an opportunity of a place to learn and kept me from getting killed in Vietnam at that particular time. That was part of what changed my life. On May the 9th, 1972 was our graduation day, and I'm pretty sure his name was Trimble or Tackett. He was a coal operator, and he made a $25,000 gift that day to the University of Pikeville, at Pikeville College. And I thought, damn, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money in 1972. Later on, I got more involved with the board, and there's things in your life that stick. And I was asked to be the chair of the first fundraiser, Lori, that we had several years ago. And we had a meeting downtown, and a gentleman named Walter P. Walters was there. And Walter made a statement. He said, what you give to your church are tithes, and what you give to your community are offerings. And to help your community is required if you're a part of that community. Another lesson in my life I never forgot. Later, to see God's work in this place, when we started the medical school and we talked about housing in some of the committee's meetings this morning, this dorm here had been closed since I was a student. Money was given by the Simpson family. And one of the funny things about it, somebody had a really good lawyer, because we had a hell of a time building this building, because in the deed for building that building, which I think cost about $10,000 at the time, the lawyer wrote that the view to downtown Pikeville could never be obstructed. We had to publish a few things in the newspaper. We couldn't find any heirs, so we went ahead and built this building. But when we built this building, I said, we're going to need some way to put some people for a place to sleep. And so we hired an architect with money that was in the fund to maintain the building. And the architect made a presentation this particular morning, and it was $1,463,000 at that time to remodel this building. And the executive committee of the board was kind of looking around, and Bill Baird was late. And Bill come in, and Bill's never late. He came into the meeting. He said, I'm really sorry. He said, but Grace Call's will was read this morning, and I had to be there. And she left 25% of her estate to the university, college at that time. I said, but Bill, how much is it? He said, I think it's about $1.5 million. I said, I think I know what we're supposed to do with that. A miracle that happened. Someone that was a huge part of my life, it's a gentleman by the name of Buck Harless. Mr. Harless was 93, October the 15th, when I went to see him for his last birthday on this earth. And I asked him, I said, Buck, why do you give so much away? And he told me this story. He said, you know, Terry, I was born an orphan. My aunt raised me. And he said, I've been blessed. I borrowed $500 and bought a sawmill on Coal Mountain. And every time I was in a helicopter with him, he flew over that sawmill and said, look, there's where I started. And I said, yeah, it's nice, Mr. Harless. I'm glad you brought me by. But he said, you know, I've been given the means. He died a billionaire. And he said, occasionally, God sends me an opportunity. God gave me the means, and God gave me the opportunity. If I find it's a good opportunity, then I've had the means. I need to take care of the opportunity. Giving back is important. I know I'm preaching to the choir here because most of you are board members and you're involved in things. But all of you know somebody that's been blessed by this institution. And if you don't want to ask them for something, I promise you, I'm really good at it. I've been asking people for money all my life. And Skipper said you called this the miracle of the mountains. It's the miracle of the mountains that the people have been in the right place at the right time. That medical school wouldn't be in here if Chad Perry hadn't made a crazy pledge for $1 million, and I thought he was insane when he did it. And a year later, I'm flying all over the country trying to raise the money for it. It's a miracle because Paul Patton happened to be in the Glover's Mansion. It's a miracle because Hal Rogers had the power he had. It's a miracle that Mitch McConnell was sitting where he was sitting. So all the cards lined up. A good friend of mine calls me occasionally, and he's a Catholic priest, and we were talking about some problems in our country the other day, and he said, you know, Terry, I pray for God's help every day. And I said, Jack, you got to look at that word help. God can't help you do nothing. You got to stand up and do something if you want God to help you, and I think he will. He's helped this institution. We're going to continue to grow. It's a road under construction. It'll never be finished. need your help, need your support in making this university more and more successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Dotson. With every campaign and project, as many of you know who lead projects, there's always a pivotal moment where your vision becomes a reality. And for us, that moment came when we had the opportunity to meet the Tanner family, an extraordinary family who has made an impact on the University of Pikeville. We have had a chance, maybe a dozen times, to meet with Carol Tanner, an incredible individual that, quite honestly, I can model my life after. She is so giving and so caring, and we're thankful that we have had a chance to get to meet with Carol and her kids. An opportunity has come that her son, Will Tanner, now serves on the Board of Trustees, and we're so happy, Will. This is your first meeting, so let's go out with a bang because you're also speaking this morning as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Will Tanner to the podium.
When I found out on Monday that I was going to be giving this talk, I started to prepare some remarks. So I actually have a script. You'll have to forgive me if I ad-lib some. I'm going to do it right now. I stand in front of judges, juries, all walks of life, all the time in cases large and small, important and unimportant. And this may end up being the most difficult talk I've ever had to give. Not because it's hard to say these things or not because there's anything negative about it. It's because it's so positive that I don't really know how to overcome the fact that I am now a 55-year-old lawyer, raised 2 kids, and I am a sentimental old fool. I've learned this about myself over the last few years. Now, to the prepared remarks. As you've heard, my name is Will Tanner. I'm an attorney in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I have the honor of having been accepted as a member of the Board of Trustees here at the University of Pikeville. And my family and I are very excited to be part of this growing institution that serves Appalachia, which is an area that is near and dear to both me and my entire family. I grew up in Ashland. I graduated from Paul G. Blazer High School in 1988. My mother's family has deep roots in Pike County going back to the early 1800s. My great-great-grandparents, James and Vicey Goff, purchased 170 acres in Millard on the Russell Fork of the Big Sandy in the 1870s sometime. And it was there that my great-grandmother, America Ratliff Goff, who was from Maribone, and her husband, William, raised my grandfather, Foster Goff, and his 6 younger siblings, one of whom is Johnny Rasnick's mom, who's still alive and kicking here in Pike County. They all went to the local schools, and education was always front and center within their family. And I had the privilege of getting to know my great-grandmother a little bit. I think she died when I was about 12 or 13. We used to come down here for reunions and whatnot, and I got to know a lot of that family and a lot of this area. Now, my parents, Bob Tanner and Carol Goff Tanner, grew up in Ashland and graduated from Ashland High School in 1960. After my dad graduated from Yale and my mom graduated from Transylvania, they married in 1964, and they eventually settled back in Ashland where they raised my older sister Jane, me, and my younger sister Annie. My dad, along with his father until his death in 1981, owned and ran the Tanner Oil Company, which many in this room will remember as Rich Oil. There were Rich Oil stations all over Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia. I remember when I was a kid, on the occasional Saturday, Dad would say, "Come on, son, let's get in the car," and we would drive to places out in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, out in the middle of nowhere in eastern Kentucky, in West Virginia. And on those drives, we would go and we were checking on the stations. And really what it was an opportunity for my dad to show what he and his father had built. Excuse me. Ultimately, he ended up selling the whole company, lock, stock, and barrel, to Ashland Oil over some protracted negotiations in 1984 and 1985 before Ashland Oil's merger with Marathon. Now, I somehow managed to follow in my father's footsteps to Yale for college. I went and started in 1988. At the same time, my parents moved from Ashland to Charlottesville, Virginia, which is how we ended up there. My dad he thought he was going to pursue a PhD, and he did fairly well at the University of Virginia until he decided that it was too much work to actually write the dissertation that he was going to have to write. And so he decided at that point to embrace retirement. Now, during that same time, while I was at Yale, I started to realize, as much as I wanted to get out of Ashland and go somewhere different, because I was young, kind of dumb, I started to realize how growing up in Eastern Kentucky shaped me. And I also learned something about how little people from otherwise educated places like New York, Boston, Long Island, how little they knew about Appalachia, apart from some rather unfair or fair stereotypes. They simply didn't understand that Appalachia, and certainly the people in this room, is filled with some of the smartest, most decent people on earth who put, family, education, and community above virtually any other concern in their lives. Eastern Kentucky is an innovative, rugged, difficult, challenging, and beautiful place. And it is filled with some of the most innovative, interesting, and intelligent people that one can find. And I can say this honestly, I do it all the time back in Charlottesville, particularly in front of juries. It seems to work. But I am proud to embrace my hillbilly roots. And my family and I have lived for many years away from the mountains of Kentucky, but the mountains of Kentucky have always lived in us. Now, after Yale, I attended law school at the University of Georgia in Athens, and eventually found my way to Charlottesville, where I ended up raising 2 children of my own. For years, my father and I would have lunch every month or so in Charlottesville at a place near my office called the Court Square Tavern. A couple of weeks before he died, some 7.5 years ago, we were having lunch, and we got to talking about finances, estate planning, things that he was concerned with. And the topic of giving money to charities came up. And he imparted a bit of wisdom on me. And he said, if you think it's hard to make money, just wait till you find out how hard it is to give it away. Now, when my father died in 2018, things changed for my family in ways that we all had a difficult time processing and understanding. My mothers and sisters and I came to realize that we were the beneficiaries of something important. Precisely because so many people from Appalachia had trusted my father, his company, and the Rich Oil brand. We knew the people of this small community and many others like it spent their hard-earned money at those rich oil stations. And that's what made it possible for us to do some real good for the area that had given so much to us. We needed to do something outside of ourselves with that legacy. Now, to get back to that conversation at the Court Square Tavern, when Dad said giving away money was hard, it turns out he wasn't talking about U-Pike. Everyone in this room knows that U-Pike is a very special place. This institution is a force for so much good throughout Appalachia, for education in general and for healthcare in particular. Those of us that have the ability to contribute to that mission can do so knowing that Burton Webb, Lori, Laura Dameron, and the rest of the university staff, they can make that giving easy. And they're responsible stewards of the trust that we placed in them. All of us here understand the concept of the gift of giving. Those of us that have been fortunate enough to have the resources to contribute to the mission of this place don't expect gratitude or thanks. We give because we believe in the people of Appalachia and the mission of this place. The gift we receive in return is seeing the vision of this institution become reality. And it is both gratifying and humbling to see that happen. Thank you very much.
I'll never forget sitting across the dining room table from your mom, Will, and we were talking about a variety of things, and she's been generous in many, many ways. But we were sitting across her dining room table, and she said, "I just read a magazine article about your medical school." She said, "You're making a real impact in rural areas," and I think at the time we were ranked number 2 in the nation for rural medicine and primary care. And she leaned across the table and she said, "Have you ever thought about a dental school?" And the truth was we had. 10 years before, we had thought about that, but we decided at that time that it wasn't the direction to go, and we built this building, and we started the Kentucky College of Optometry. And there are a variety of reasons and circumstances that led to that, but that was the direction that we went, and the legacy that I picked up when I came to this institution and started moving that forward. But that conversation triggered in us a real drive to understand the needs for oral health care. And the needs here are great. They're not just great in Eastern Kentucky, they're great across all of Central Appalachia, and even in Western Kentucky, there are still issues with oral health care. And so the commitment that we have from the Tanner family to be able to pull off what we think will be one of the most advanced schools of dental medicine, and one that changes the paradigm for medical education more broadly, because instead of taking 4 years to get through a program, we're going to do it in 3, and it will be of a better quality than 4. That changes things because it gets dentists into the community that much faster, an entire year. It's a little bit less debt, it's a lot more time to practice. And so we think that that's really profound. A couple of years ago, the board came together and the cabinet came together, and we said, if we're going to do all of these projects, Bear Mountain, the Tanner College of Dental Medicine, and we're going to invest in scholarships, we really need to think about doing a capital campaign. And it had been a while since the University of Pikeville had done one. Certainly not in my time here, but it had been several years since we had a formal capital campaign. We sat down with the advancement folks, Dr. Worth and I sat down and talked, and we said, we really need to hire a consultant who can help guide us into how much the campaign should be valued at. We didn't know on our own. We didn't know the capacity. We had no real measure for that. I had done capital campaigns in churches before, but I'd never done one of this size in a college. So I thought it would be a good idea to hire a consulting firm. So we did. We hired Ashley Roundtree out of Louisville. And they came and did an extensive amount of research. They called many of you. They asked questions about capacity and about the mission and the vision and what we might be able to do. And that's what helped us to coalesce around these 3 projects. They also told us what they thought a goal should be. We didn't really have a great idea what it should be. We thought, Lori and I privately, that the goal should be somewhere between $75 and $100 million. But we weren't sure. That was just us saying what we thought in our gut it might be. They came back with a number that was far lower than that. They came back with a number actually that was lower than $50 million. And we went to them and sat and negotiated for a while, and we said, we really think that $50 million should be the goal of this capital campaign. And so they agreed, and they helped us develop the materials and start the campaign and get things up and running and moving forward. And the campaign started to get its own legs. And in addition to the campaign, we continued with our Office of Grants to continue to write grants and to do those kinds of things that would allow us to add additional funding to the capital campaign that we believed should be mostly private philanthropy. Well, in those meetings, there is a strategy. And the strategy of a capital campaign is that you raise 75% of the funds for your campaign before you announce to the public that you are in a capital campaign. So we have, for the last couple of years, been in the silent phase of our capital campaign. The announcement for today is that we have crossed the 75% threshold on a $50 million campaign. With the help of donors like the Tanner family and many of you who are seated in this room, with the help of our chairman, Chairman Dotson, Lori Worth, Laura Dameron, and their folks in advancement, As of this moment, we have raised $38,071,704 for this capital campaign. With this amount, we launched the public phase. And the public phase now will include much broader marketing around the capital campaign. You will begin to see things on our website and in our magazines, and you'll start to see those moments where many folks who have not yet been approached for the capital campaign will be approached. So in these early days, we're mostly going after large gifts and large investments. But now we will shift. We'll shift to the point where we'll be asking folks to dig into your own wallets and say, can you give $100? Can you give $1,000? Because if I've got 100 people giving $1,000, I've got $100,000. If I've got 1,000 people doing that, that's $1 million. And so we're at that moment, that point in time where it's time for everyone to be involved in a capital campaign that will empower this institution to grow and to thrive for the next decades to come. Thank you so much for being here. We're very, very pleased and proud to have everyone here. And I think Dr. Worth is going to come back and guide us through the next moments of this ceremony. Dr. Worth?
Thank you. I saw a few folks who came in late. I believe we have a couple of our former deans who are towards the back. Dr. Howard Roberts, I see you. And did I see Dr. Bacigalupi back there? Is Mike back there? Thank you. It's so good to see both of you. Hi. Our former KICO dean and former Coleman College of Business deans. If you are an alumni and graduate of Pikeville College or University of Pikeville, would you please stand? I'd like to see all of our alumni here. All right, let's give them a round of applause. Excellent. Thank you. And before we close out, it will take your help. We spoke about it this morning in our committee meeting that really with a campaign, it means the people that you know, the folks that are within your network that we can meet, and we are more than happy to do so, but each of you have a network of individuals. I see Skipper Martin out there who's really helped us out. Brad, you're here to support us, and you've helped us out. Folks that are really making connections for us, and that's what it will take to cross the finish line. And as we think about this campaign, we will cross and exceed the finish line with your help and the community's help. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Laura Dameron. Laura is our Assistant Vice President for Advancement and Alumni Relations, and she will provide our closing remarks.
Well, Dr. Webb set me up well. I will probably be one of the people who approach you in the coming weeks and months ahead, along with my advancement colleagues. Chairman Dotson used a word earlier that fuels our team every day, and that's opportunity. We get the opportunity to travel and be on the road and just work with our people on campus to share the U-Pike story. And it's truly a privilege, and it's something very special. But what we're all here today to do, and what brings us all together today, is to create opportunities for our students and for our region. And I see many donors, corporations, private individuals, trustees who have helped us get to this milestone, and thank you. There are too many of you to call out personally, but we know who you are, and we're so grateful. So thank you for joining us here today. There's lunch on the plaza. It's Founders Day picnic, so feel free to stick around and fellowship, and thank you for all that you've done and will continue to do for U-Pike. Good afternoon. Thank you.